Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's podcast. I'm Paul Barthel, and today I'm joined by Ian Cannell, Ken Tucker, and Jeff Steck. And today we're diving into the world of text message marketing and specifically how it can benefit small businesses. I think it's something that small businesses do not take advantage of, and they should be for various reasons. So let's dive in. Ken, so let's start. What's the advantages of text message marketing for small businesses?
Yeah, well, there are a lot actually. So the first thing is that text message marketing has a ridiculous open rate. Um, Most of the time, you're any channel that you use, you're kind of at the mercy of if that's just going to show up in somebody's stream or not. But text message marketing actually, kind of breaks that mold a little bit. It's still driven by people who you have to have approved to be on your list. But the open rates are 95% or so across, all text marketing messages that are being delivered. Uh, so what that means is it cuts through the noise they have on them 24/7 many times, or at least 20 hours a day, probably close to that. Um, and it's with them pretty much everywhere they go. So if you're sending an email, um, yeah, that could be delivered on their phone, but it may not prompt them to say, "Hey, you have a new email message," but you do get that with a text message. So that's why the open rates are so high. It gives you the ability to therefore get your message to people in a very timely manner and have a high degree of confidence that they're taking action. So think about if you're a restaurant and you should be really busy on a Thursday afternoon at 4 o'clock and it's kind of dead, or 3 o'clock or whatever. You can send a text message out to the people on your list and give them a reason to come in, and you'll know that that's going to be delivered in a pretty timely manner, and that can drive some immediate business. If that if the call to action is compelling or the offer is compelling. It's also really inexpensive. Text messages do not cost a lot of money to be delivered. The text platforms, depending on the bells and whistles and features, is going to cost some money, but the actual delivery costs of the messages are really very low. It gives you the ability to personalize. If you again, you have to be using a text message marketing platform to be able to do that. Um, you you want to be cognizant of the fact that text message marketing really very, very, very strongly requires that people opt in. So you don't want to just be doing blasts. But a couple of other really amazing things about text message marketing is that we talk about speed of response on this podcast, and texts are the fastest form of communication typically available to a broad range of people. Uh, and so that's great. It makes sure that you can respond. For example, email typically doesn't get open for about 90 minutes on average. Text messages get open typically within 90 seconds. That's huge. So if you're trying to beat your competitor to respond back to somebody who's expressed interest in working with your business, text message marketing is absolutely a channel you should be looking at. Now this is a different type of text because it's more of a transactional text, but it still, I think, falls under the text message marketing because you have the ability to craft a pre-written text to automatically be sent back to deliver that, compared to other channels, lightning fast response. The other interesting thing is that texts links inside of text messages get clicked on about 45% of the time on average. That's way higher than in almost any, I don't know of any other platform that comes close to that. I mean, if you're getting that on your email, you've got a fantastic list, and never screw up that email list if you're getting 45% open rate. Generally, email typically falls in the 6 to 10% range, and it depends on the quality of your list. It depends on how engaged and how much people really consume the content that you're delivering. But those two statistics alone, I think, are just eye-popping. And so you absolutely want to take advantage of text marketing for your business. There are lots of different ways that you could do it. I think it's important to have a really good content rhythm. Text marketing is not something that you want to abuse. So you want to be very respectful of how many texts you're sending out in terms of broadcast style texts to the list of people that you have had opt in. Transactional, you can have as many texts as it needs to have that conversation and that dialogue back and forth. But if you're doing a once a week text message to your list to talk about, here are the weekly specials this week, you don't want to send a text message over and over and over again. One of the things that I've found to be really annoying lately is I've opted into a couple of online merchants recently, and I bought some of their products, but now I get 2, 3, 4 text messages a day, and it's ridiculous. So that's not a good policy. That is way overkill. But if you design it right and you have a good content rhythm, you don't look. A lot of people don't do text. Well, I won't steal somebody else's thunder because I think that's a topic. Let's just keep it at, define what you want to work on in using a text message marketing platform. Incorporate transactional where that makes sense, and I think it makes sense for almost every business these days. Just as a form of customer communication to verify appointments, whether they're coming to your place of business or whether you're going to their home or place of business. But then also from a text broadcast messaging type of perspective, what do you want to accomplish? Don't just send text messages out because without thought and a lot of design behind them and intent. Otherwise, you're going to drive people away. So,
Ken, you hit on a couple things I'd just like to amplify a little bit. The notion of the automation platforms. I mean, yeah, you absolutely have to have one. You're not going to sit there on your phone and send out 1,000 text messages manually, right? So you have to have an automation platform, and then you get a lot of interesting benefits. You mentioned the rapid time that people notice it. Their phone goes ding and they pick it up and they look at it, right? And
right.
You mentioned having links in there, and you also kind of hit at the cadence and the amount you send out to people. All of these things come together in the platform, and you can do some really cool things, especially when you start integrating them into your omni-channel marketing. But for instance, you could ask people, do you want to get notified of the daily special? Press 1. Or do you just want to see new menu items? If you're a restaurant, I'm using the restaurant theme, press 2. And then people can, in your automation platform, they will become programmed essentially. So your automation platform will know their preferences and will not annoy them with stuff they don't want to see. So there's a lot more beyond just the ability to connect instantly and provide links, but you can get information, you can set up profiles, you can do a lot of cool things through the automations to tailor or personalize the customer experience. And that's really what you want to do, is connect with people on their terms.
Yeah. I mean, if you're sending a broadcast message, you still, with the right tool set and the right automations that you can leverage in that tool set, you can still make it feel like they're getting a personalized message directly from you.
Mm-hmm.
So Ian, Ken talked about the advantages, or some of the advantages, of text message marketing. Are there any possible disadvantages to it?
Nope. Yes, there are. In fact,
Yeah, short show.
Yeah.
it's a short show, guys. No, I would say the biggest disadvantage, and it's not just a disadvantage. It's a so email marketing used to be extremely powerful. Still is today. The stats show that. But what happened is people misused email marketing. In fact, the vast majority of companies and marketers out there misused and continue to misuse email marketing. They're not invited guests, they're uninvited pests, right? So that gives email marketing a really bad name. We in the world of marketing absolutely know, and we see the trend that text message marketing is going this exact way. If people aren't careful, if businesses don't take responsibility for what they're doing, and just like with emails, be an invited guest. What that means is you need to be opted into, right? People need to opt in to receive your messages. And then you need to bear responsibility to always provide value in those text messages. The day you stop providing value of any kind is the day people type in stop, and that's the day you have to stop text messaging them, right? So just a few other disadvantages is you need the people's mobile number, right? We've talked about CRM systems, we talked about marketing automation systems. If you haven't actively gathered people's mobile numbers, you can't text them, right? I see this actually with a lot of businesses where they have historically strong databases, but they haven't split out mobile numbers versus landlines. So how do you know which ones are landlines, which ones are mobile numbers? Well, you can try texting them, but that's going to cause all sorts of challenges, right? I would say the biggest disadvantage, though, is intrusiveness. Text messaging is powerful because it is interruptive, right? We hear a ding. We get text messages from our loved ones, from our friends, from colleagues all the time, and it's very powerful, and it interrupts our lives in a good way because we want to interact with those people. But on the flip side, if just like Ken was sharing his bad experience, right, where he signed up for some of these services or expressed interest, and now he's getting overwhelmed with text messages. I mean, the natural reaction is to type in stop and never get another text message from those guys. And once you opt out as a business, if somebody opts out of your text messaging, you can't really text message them ever again unless they opt back in, right? So you're creating some pretty big issues there. So we'll talk about later some ways to overcome some of these issues. But some of the other disadvantages are you only have so much opportunity to express what you're putting in those messages, right? The shorter, the better. You're not trying to, in an email, you can get quite lengthy. In a text message, you shouldn't. People expect that text messages are going to be punchy, short, hey, how's it going? What are you doing? Here's some information, right? So the challenge to the business is that you have to be super clear. You have to be very focused on what you're expressing to someone so that they know immediately what value they're getting from this text message. Text messaging, Ken talked about the cost of text messaging being quite low, but compared to email, which is absolutely free or very, very close to, it's very inexpensive, right, to send out emails. Text messaging actually does cost money per text message. So if a business doesn't understand that, or if they're using a tool that might not be optimized for deliverability and good cost savings, that can actually be, especially if they start, buying lists or doing other things and not realizing that they are going to be charged for text messages, that can actually be something they're not expecting. And then on a bigger scale, privacy concerns, these are always a big issue, right? Consumers worry about their private information being out there. What is the information being shared with people they didn't expect it to be shared? High opt-out rates. Some businesses are seeing pretty high opt-out rates out of text messaging now because, again, they didn't do it well. They didn't think about what is the psychology of somebody receiving one of these text messages. Again, you need to be very smart about this. And then there's regulatory things that are happening and have happened in the last year that actually makes it harder for spammers to do text messaging, which is wonderful as consumers. But it is an extra step or couple steps that businesses have to be cognizant of when they're setting up their text messaging for their business, in that you basically have to tell the regulatory partners, this is what we're going to be doing. This is the type of messaging that we're going to be sharing. And this is how people can opt in, opt out. There are some pretty interesting steps now in order to even be able to send text messages out properly and not be flagged by the carriers that you are a spammer. And the last thing I'm just going to share is message fatigue. We talked about a little bit of how email has become this overwhelming channel for some people. Text messaging for sure can happen that same way if we're not careful about how we use it. And I think that's something really important. Just as a little anecdote, one of the medical companies that I use as a service, when they first got text messaging and it was built into their practice management software, they didn't really set it up right. And so as a patient of theirs, you would receive, like 3 text messages the day, 30 days out from your appointment. Then the day of and the 3 days leading up, you'd get like 8 text messages. Even the day of, they would send you text messages that were not clear, meaning that it would say, hey, Ian, you have an appointment today at 2:30. But it's not asking me to do anything, right? Like, it's not asking me to confirm. And so then you'd get a message from an actual human through the text later saying, hey, you didn't respond. Well, you weren't asking me to respond. You were just sharing information, right? So some of these things, especially with automation, and some of the integrations into software like this practice management software, businesses have to be the consumer. You have to test it on yourself in order to understand, like, how is this actually presenting our brand to our patients or consumers, in order to understand, is it effective? Are we overburdening people with too many messages? What can we do to make it work? But text messaging is super powerful, but you got to be smart about it for sure.
Yeah. So Ian, one thing too, you can send a long text message, and in some cases that may make sense to do. Just realize
people don't expect it, is what I was saying, Ken. People,
right?
Like text messaging is all about me sending you a note for the most part, right? That's how it's evolved. And so I don't think it's not an easy form for long form copy to read, right? For most people.
Yeah. And I'm not saying super long form content, but if you need to say something in 300 characters, say it that way, right? Don't let the 160 character limit prevent you from saying it in a way that you need to say it to make it appealing for people to want to read it and take action. Just realize that if you go over 160 characters, you're going to be charged for every 160 characters you use for a separate text message, a segment, if you will. So there's an extra, you're basically doubling the cost of your message. Not that it's very expensive. It's practically pennies. It's pennies or fractions of a penny. But you're going to be using 2 of your segments. So if you sign up for a text marketing plan that gives you 500 text messages a month, realize that if you're writing 300 word or 300 character texts, you're using 2 of those every time you send out what you think is one message.
Yep.
Yeah, because the carriers, I think you use the word segments, which is what they are. They break these things up into segments, and that's how they chart. Twilio actually has a pretty good article on it, but it's a little techie. But yeah, it does. Like Ken said, if you send out a 300 text or 300 character text messages, you're basically being charged for 2 segments. So you're basically being charged for 2 text message being sent as opposed to 1. But you think you're sending 1, and you probably noticed on your phone, at least mine does it, that if you send a long text message, it'll say like 1 of 2, 2 of 2. Now it's not gonna send two separate text messages, but you would be charged for two text messages, which generally you have unlimited data, but that's not how because that's from your own private phone, but that's how
It's on the sending side.
On the sending side, that's how if you're using a text message marketing platform, that's how they charge those things out. And on that note, you should not be using your own private phone number to be sending out text message marketing
for business purposes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, one of the other things I didn't really mention, because it's not like a direct disadvantage of text message marketing, but it's something to keep in mind. And we talk an awful lot about omni-channel marketing, is that you have to view, yes, you could run a text message campaign as an isolated campaign, but truly that's not going to achieve the results that you probably want as a business. You have to think of the consumer and their buyer's journey, and that this is just one form of communication, and that you have a host of other connectors to those people, and to be cognizant of that buyer's journey and what they're looking for and the information they need at each step, and how text message marketing can be super powerful if used at the right steps. But there might be other channels that are equally powerful that need to be used in different ways at different times.
There's another point. I don't know that I'd call it necessarily a disadvantage, but just something to be aware of. If you're sending outgoing texts, especially through an automation platform, what happens when somebody replies, right? You mentioned it a little bit, Ian, in that, is it a reply expected or not? But just in general, if somebody has a way to communicate with you in text, they may think, oh, I can send a message here. So you need to either let them know that, when they enter in, that we don't monitor this, we just use it for outgoing communications, or better yet, you need to have it set up so that when you do have an incoming text, somebody in the office gets notified and they then can respond to it. Otherwise, it can have an adverse effect on your customer's journey and your impression that your person you're trying to communicate with has, if they think, well, they're just using this to blast stuff to me and they don't care what I have to say or what I need or what I want. So it goes into the, how are you going to set this up? How are you going to use it effectively? It's not a necessarily positive nor a negative, just something to think through and make sure you've got it covered as you do the setup.
Yeah.
I'm glad you shared that, Jeff, because I think that's actually something that most businesses don't even consider, that like, oh, this is a marketing thing over here. But then you have your team, your internal team, whether it's reception, whether it's sales team, whatever it is, that unless you integrate this into behavior, like actual, this is work behavior for us, and this is relevant and it's needed, and maybe it's even compensated a certain way, right? Like if you respond within X, or if you don't respond within X, that's a problem, right? So, I think businesses really do need to take that into account, because as you said, like if it's not done well, you've tried to create this what appears to be a human to human connection. And if that's not real, like if people are unresponsive, and we've talked a lot about responsiveness, the speed to response in the past, if you don't respond quickly and with, a personalized response, that can actually break the human to human contact pretty quickly, create a bad relationship, right?
All right. So, Jeff, Ken touched on this a little bit, but how can text message marketing benefit small businesses specifically? I mean, what are some of the things they can do, the way they can use it to benefit their business?
Yeah, this is a great question, because it's a place where you can get into ideas and really get the creative juices going, right? Again, as Ken said, text message as a component of marketing strategy, as a tool, as part of omnichannel, can have tremendous benefits, and it's very cost effective. It can take advantage of the immediacy of people getting. So I used the example of a restaurant earlier. Restaurants can send out daily specials. Now, again, you may want to ask people when they're getting on your list, set some expectations, right? Send them a response, hey, thank you for joining the list. We want to tailor this to you. Would you like to see daily specials? And 1 for yes, 2 for no, or yes or no, or Y or N, however you get a response back, and your automation can handle that so that you give people the experience that they want. And the people that want to know about your daily specials, they're going to get it then. And that can then bring more people in. The people that don't want to know, you're not going to annoy them. Retail stores, they can alert customers about flash sales. They can talk about new items coming in, seasonal things. A lot of cool things can go on there, especially again, when you're tied into the CRM, the automation platform knows what past history is. Service-based businesses, they can remind people, hey, it's time for your oil change. You know, if I'm on my auto mechanic does that. If I'm on their text message list, which I am, a certain time, they don't know how many miles I drive a day, but a certain time after I was in last, they can think I'm probably due for an oil change, and I get a reminder. Home service-based businesses, somebody's coming out to do some work on your home, you can get a text ahead of time. Hey, the service technician's on the way. You know, just want to let you know if you need to be there. They're on the way, and if you can't be there, let us know, and we'll reschedule. So there's a lot of operational aspects that can come into play. Getting online reviews, post service, text message is a viable way to ask for online reviews. Everyone's probably been to the doctor or the dentist and then gotten a review request afterwards. They tend to be very good about, again, using those automation platforms and tying it to their CRMs. So there's a whole lot of things that can happen and that can benefit businesses. But again, you need to think strategically, how does this play a role in my overall marketing strategy, my overall customer communication strategy, and make sure that you allow for tailoring. People don't want to get text messages, don't force them down their throat. If people want to get a lot of them, then have a way for them to get what they need. And then I talked a minute ago about the follow-up. Make sure that, if you send a text message out and somebody replies, you ask for a reply. It's probably handled by automation. But if somebody just replies out of the blue and you don't understand the response because it wasn't meeting a pre-programmed request, then you might say, we're not monitoring this right now. Please call the office. Please send us an email. So it's all about using it appropriately and tying it into the strategies. But again, think in terms of immediacy, think in terms of reminders, but again, don't be annoying. Like Ian said, you don't need 8 reminders the day of service, maybe the day of, the day before, a week before, but you don't need to overdo it. But they can be really good for driving foot traffic, for reminding people of who you are and come by and see us, for communicating about service, promoting limited time offers, promoting sales. There's all kinds of cool things that can be done through text. And then, from a loyalty point of view, you can personalize, if again, in your CRM, if you have, customer service anniversary dates, their birthdays, you can send them a text. Hey, just saw that today was your birthday. I want to let you know that we're thinking about you. Wish you a happy birthday. If you're a restaurant, you might send them a text a week ahead of time. Hey, we know your birthday is coming up. Come on in. It'll be a free appetizer, right? So you can take advantage of those personalization kind of things that you can do as you gather data and build profiles in your CRMs about it. Based on their buyer's behavior, you could offer them special discounts or special exclusive, top tier premium offers kind of thing. There's just all kinds of things you can do when you start thinking about the immediacy of the communication and the automation capabilities and tying it into CRMs for personalization. Can be a tremendous benefit for marketing efforts. But the last thing I'll say relative to that is, again, it depends on your target audience. If your target audience is receptive to text, if they're used to using text, it can be a great tool. If they aren't, and they feel like you're trying to force it down their throat, it can work against you. So you really got to plug it back into your strategy and part of your ideal client definitions, your personas, how people like to get information, and then offer them choices and a path through the tool that you use as part of the customer journey.
Hey, Jeff, I've got another example that I actually just used this week, and that is I did a presentation to a chamber group. And at the end of the presentation, I had some resources available that if people wanted, on the slide, it says text keyword to this phone number. And then they get a text message back from me with links to 2 resource documents that they can download. Mm-hmm. And so, that's good for the person, because they're getting some valuable resources. At least I hope they find them valuable. But it's good for me too, because now I've got their contact information and I can do a variety of things with that. I tag it. I know why they download or why they got that message, and so now I can build an automation to follow up with them.
Yeah.
Maybe even just an automation to send to me to say, hey, these people downloaded these resources, call them in 3 days and ask them, were these helpful for you? It doesn't
Yeah, and
always
you
have to
can
be a message back.
you can also build out your profile, if you will, your what you know about people. Occasionally ask a question, and then based on the responses, tag them in your CRM, or you can extend how you reach people. If you've got longer form content that you want to give them that doesn't lend itself to delivery over text or downloading to their phone via link, ask them for their email address, right? So you can ask for an email address, say, hey, I've got this really great stuff I want to send you. If you text your email address to me, I'll send it as an email because it's kind of long. And now, boom, you've got their text number and their email address in your CRM. So yeah, even better.
And a good best practice is to actually ask people, like, what way do you prefer to get communications, right? If they prefer text, then pay attention to that.
Yeah. And then, I know we've talked about this a little bit in some other podcasts where a lot of businesses that have a place of business, or even, for example, service area businesses don't use their vehicles as marketing space the way they should or could. And so you can have opt-ins to get people to join your text list in your place of business if people come to your place of business. So retail, restaurants, places like that, chiropractors, dentists, any place where people are going, to get the product or service that they're wanting, use your physical space to get people to join your list. Give them a reason why. And maybe the reason why is the initial offer that if you opt into our text program, you're going to get this, and that is the first text that they get. You always need to make sure you include the ability to opt out. So you need to have a message that says, if you no longer want to receive these messages, type the word stop, and that will, I think, Jeff, you mentioned it earlier, but it'll remove them. But if you're a contractor and you go to somebody's home, you've got space on your car or truck that you could choose to use, even a QR code to send people to an opt-in page where they can, or you can just a nonprofit on your website text give to a phone number. You use whatever space you've got to get people to opt into your list. We've talked about the importance of list building. List building for text message marketing is as critical, maybe even more critical than email, because the potential severity of abusing text marketing, I think there's a lot lower threshold of that. So you need to make sure that people are opting in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Paul alluded to it also, but there is a serious registration aspect, or maybe you did. There's a serious registration aspect as a business to get set up to send text. It's a little bit of a pain. You can do it in a half hour easily. First time through, you may be scratching your head figuring out what it's all about, but to register a phone number for outgoing text is a little bit of a pain, but the benefits are hugely worth it. And the reason that is they're trying to cut down on spam texts. I think somebody said that it may be harder to get through. I think, as in the US anyway, as of is it April 1st, somewhere along the line, maybe it was last year, they just won't go through. If you're not registered and you're trying to send automated text, they just won't go out. So you need to make sure you're working with an above board provider or somebody that can help you get that set up. But it's going to be part of a broader strategy, and really getting a little bit of help on it is going to kind of open eyes to how to really effectively use it anyway. So that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, it was the whole spam, all the spam text messages that brought that registration process about in the first place.
Yeah.
So, Ken, we probably touched on this a little bit, but a lot of businesses, we know they're not taking advantage of text message marketing. What are some of the reasons for that? We know they're not. We haven't really, I don't know, we've talked about the reasons for it that
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. I mean, it blows me away how few businesses I've talked to across the spectrum of industries that use text message marketing. And again, you've got a continuum of what that means. It could be just pure transactional based texts, or it could be texts for marketing similar to email marketing and broadcast messages. You know, I think the reason why people don't is because they've been on the receiving end of getting a text message from a business that they don't want. So they're like, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be that gal. I don't want to be that person, whatever. And so they categorically rule it out because they've been annoyed by it. Don't let somebody else's bad practices, you know, drive you towards a decision without putting it in a context of, does this work really well for my ideal customers? You know, you got to think about the customer, not yourself. Another reason why I think a lot of businesses don't take advantage of this, one is they're scared of regulatory compliance. They don't know. So they just literally don't spend any time and effort to research it because they think it's got to be a big hassle and it's probably, you know, not correct. Now, I'm sure there are some industries that are regulated where they can't send out maybe any or at least certain types of text messages. And so, you know, maybe it's just easier for them to say, yeah, no, we're good. No, we're not going to do it. But for a lot of small businesses, especially places that people come to, or if you go to people's place of business to deliver your service, you know, every business really should take a good hard look at it. One of the reasons why I think a lot of brick and mortar type businesses that people go to aren't using it is because they've tried it in the past. They signed up for a text marketing program that came with their point of sale system. And honestly, those suck. They just suck. They have generic messages and, you know, and there's no marketing strategy behind it. And so they'll send out a text message here, they'll send out a text message there. And they don't get very predictable results. One of the things that drives me nuts when we talk to people about setting up a text program is, it's all about the offer. I mean, 90% of the reason why people are going to opt into a text program from a broadcast perspective is because they want to know the offers that you have available. But it's not always a discount, right? I mean, just get that out of your mind. It doesn't have to be a discount. Some of them should, but not everyone. And really not even 50% of your messages probably should be discount driven. But when you do a discount or you come up with that offer, people want to drive people. They are like, sign up for our text marketing program and get a banana, a banana coffee flavored pizza. You know, now who in their right mind is going to take advantage of that? You know, I wouldn't opt in for that. If that's the offer, it's like, hell no, I don't want that. But, but if you focus on your most popular item, the thing that you want to make sure that you're known for, people are going to jump all over that. And look, the beauty of it is, we've talked about this over and over and over again as well. Once you get people to opt in and you get them to become a customer, it's easier to get them to come back in and be a customer, right? So if they have a great experience, you're known for, you know, your jalapeno chicken pizza or whatever it is, and people come in and they love it and they have a great experience, they're going to stay opted into your list, which means that you can probably get them back into in this case, your restaurant pretty easily. So it's all about the offer. You think about what are your best offers. Think about the time of the day that you send these messages out. If you're trying to drive people into your place of business and you send your text message out at 8:00 at night and you're not open until 10 a.m. the next day, you're probably losing a lot of validity in the message and the potency of the message that you just sent out. You certainly want to be respectful, not sending texts, outside of normal functioning hours, with people. And obviously, we don't live in a world where we all just work one shift, but, best practice, you don't want to send text messages, after like 9 o'clock and before, probably 7 or 8 a.m. as a business, unless it's tied to an appointment, where you've got to, if you have a 6 o'clock dental appointment, that's a different answer. You need to send that reminder, right? That morning of, to make sure that people show up. Here's another one, showing up. That is, people can book all they want. If they don't show up, it costs businesses a lot of money. And that's why you see a proliferation of text reminders for people to remember that they have their appointments. Because when you book an appointment with a dentist, you're keeping that dentist from seeing another potential client. That not only costs them money because they're not getting your business, it costs them the potential of not getting the business of somebody else who could have booked in that slot. So there's a huge financial repercussion for no-shows, and text reminders are really one of the best, most effective. And Ian, you deal with with dentists, so you probably could speak to this even with more authority, but the show up rate is so much better when you remind people respectfully and in the right way.
Yeah. Hey, Ken, can I just, you mentioned something really interesting that I don't want people to miss. You talked about being respectful of people's like hours of business and times and not working outside of that. And I think that's where really good systems like CRMs, marketing automation tools, they're smart enough to, like, if you're a national player, like say borders, states, provinces don't have any impact on you. So time zones do, though, for you, the people you're sending text to. Smart systems will know what time zone they're in. And if you give bookends like, hey, don't send any texts after 8 o'clock at night or something, it's going to adhere to that regardless of what time zone they're in, right?
Yeah. Great point. I think I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, there's a reason if you're using like a real CRM, there's a reason when you add a contact, it asks for their time zone.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah. If you do events, remind people of events. If you're, I work with a nonprofit dance company and we're having, performances starting in the fall. Remind people, hey, tickets are now available, even though the event isn't, for 2 or 3 months. Ticket sales have just started. So remind people that they can go buy tickets. As you're getting closer and closer to the event, you can create additional messages that might drive urgency or remind people. If you're, even if it's a free event, if it's going to, again, to me, every restaurant should seriously take a hard look at a good quality text marketing program. Probably the most cost-effective thing they can do. But if you have like a musician come in on Thursday nights, one of the texts that you can send out through the course of a week is, hey, remember to come in Thursday night. We've got Billy Bob performing this week, people love Billy Bob. They're going to show up. Guess what? When they show up, they're going to buy stuff from you, And the other thing is, many times when you offer a discount, people, they don't, they spend more money beyond the discount with you than the cost, than what it's costing you to give them that discount. Many times, whether it's retail or whether it's restaurants. That's why coupons have been around for a very long time. That's why people still send coupons out in the mail, because if you give people a buy one get one appetizer, guess what? People are going to say, you know what? I am going to have dessert tonight. When more normally they wouldn't, but they're thinking, you know what? I didn't have to buy the appetizer. Okay, I'll buy more. And that value of that purchase is almost always greater than what it cost you to offer that initial discount to get butts and seats. So think about text marketing. It's the electronic delivery of those coupons and those offers and those event reminders. Another great strategy is get somebody to a bigger sale. So remind them periodically that there's a stretch item that you have that they probably have been wanting for a while. Like, how about getting a massage? You want to get a massage, but you could add on top of that a stretching routine before. And if you offer a bigger package, where maybe even they get a take-home package of, a couple of really nice things, people are going to be like, I've been wanting to do that for a long time, but I never have. But now they're seeing a bigger value package that is you're charging them for, but you're just telling them, we've got this package. You're going to get people to take advantage of that. And they're going to wind up buying stuff that's a stretch beyond what they typically would buy. And if you create a text marketing program with these strategies in place and the messages to drive that, and look, it's all about the offer. It's all about the language. It's all about the personalization. You got to make it feel like it's just designed for people, for the people receiving it. That's where text marketing is going to work. Most businesses, they type in a message and they hit send and they don't even think about it. And that's why text marketing fails. And that's why most people who don't use text marketing, it's because they've tried it in the past and it didn't have the results that they were expecting, or it's because they got intrusive text marketing from bad actors.
My favorite quote from what you said, Ken, was text massaging. So instead of text messaging, text massaging.
Oh, really? All right.
Yeah.
Was that because of my text, but because of my dice? Well, but that's a good point. You do need to massage your texts. Literally, you need to think about the language that you're using to get people to take action. You need to be focused on action-oriented conversations. Like you said earlier, Ian, you get a text marketing message saying, hey, you got an appointment. Okay, great. Thanks. You didn't ask people to take action. So on the business receiving end, what value was that? You don't know if somebody read that message and took it seriously or not. Yep. You do if you ask for a response.
One of the things that we use text messaging for was we were at a multi-day trade show. And so we had a contest and each day we gave away different prizes. And so once somebody entered the first day, we would text message them the following days to come by and see us at the booth because we have this new prize, and we would share what the prize is. And I'm some of it was easy to track, some of it was harder to track, but we did have multiple people come back and do multiple entries. And so to us, that was a big win because it's not always easy getting people to come back to your booth. And the whole purpose of that is to help move them along in the discussion, right? Try to get a deeper relationship with them. But we found that a very powerful use. And I would suggest, like trade shows, events you were talking about, Ken, there are so many uses that you could leverage text message marketing to get people to your booth, to promote something. I think it's really underutilized that way, especially now that trade shows are booming again, right?
Yeah. Well, and even if you're whether you're doing an online presentation, which doesn't have quite the impact, or an in-person presentation where I think it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. Asking
people to take action from your presentation instead of you just delivering the message and moving on, is going to get you a lot better results. And again, it's going to let you know what people in that audience really were interested in learning a little bit more. They raise their hand and it's like, yeah, I want to know more. I'm curious about this. And now you can have a conversation where you can start to nurture either through an automated means or, pick up the phone and call them, or even give them a booking link. Say, hey, thanks for downloading our resources. After you read these, let's schedule a conversation and see how maybe you could apply these. Here's my calendar link, schedule a consultation, which I didn't do, which I probably should have.
So I was going to roundtable these last two questions, but maybe not. We're coming up on an hour, which we kind of roundtable every question anyway. So, Ian, let's start with you. What are some of the common objections? We talked about some of those that small businesses have, but more important, how can they be addressed?
Yeah, I think the biggest objection I see or hear is related to sustainability. So how can I first of all not do this badly? Right, it's another channel that some businesses are using, some aren't, but the ones that aren't, they're interested because they hear about the response rates, the open rates, which are incredible. And as a business, like there's some stats out there that show the percentage return on investment for text is super high. So as a business, you should definitely be considering it. But, I think that the key is, to do it sustainably, you really do, you can do this yourself. I know a lot of times on this podcast, we guide people to get an expert's help. And the reason we do that is because the opportunity cost and the negative cost of doing it badly are so great, especially with something like text message marketing, where you can burn bridges pretty quick, that I would suggest you talk to an expert, like a marketing expert who understands omnichannel marketing, can help guide you, do a needs analysis, right? Like take a look at what you're currently using from a system standpoint, talk about what your objectives are, and guide you through that process. But to me, that's probably one of the biggest things. And then what interlinks with that is, why are you doing it? What's the strategy? What's your overarching purpose and goal for leveraging text message marketing?
Anyone else have anything?
I'll just say I agree completely, Ian. On the surface, text message marketing is simple, and it isn't that complicated, but the setup can be kind of technical. And if you don't do it right, if it's not integrated into your strategy and taking it back to part of omnichannel, I won't say that you'll miss out, but I will. You miss a lot of other opportunities. You'll still get benefits from text marketing, text message communication, the things we talked about. But if you go into it without having your eyes wide open about all the things you can do with it, you're going to miss out on a lot of other possibilities. And that's where having some help, having somebody guide you through the technology setup, the registration implications. It's the kind of thing, if you don't do it every day, it's going to take you twice as long, and you're probably going to miss half of what you would benefit from talking to somebody about it. And then the other thing, I guess I'll jump into kind of a new topic, is it kind of came up earlier when, Ken, I think when you were talking, just because you may not like text messaging or text marketing doesn't mean your target audience doesn't like it. It's one of the biggest things I see with people. Oh, I don't need a blog on my website. I never read blogs. Just because you don't doesn't mean other people don't. Oh, I don't want to do text messaging. I never respond to text messaging. Just because you don't doesn't mean other people won't. So you really got to couple it into your ideal client personas and really understand them, and then give people options. Don't let it be a barrier to doing it, I guess, is you may not use it, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, because it can be really cool channel.
Yeah. I'll just jump in. I honestly, unless you have a dedicated expert that does your text marketing, you need to hire this out. The tools are really inexpensive. You're going to get what you pay for. If you buy a tool and you assign somebody on your team, inevitably they're going to get busy and they're not going to do it. I see it happen all the time. And they're not experts in crafting offers, creating compelling language to get people to take those calls to action. If you're only doing transactional, then when you get your CRM set up in the first place, if it's a legitimate, done well CRM, then maybe that's part of the setup fee. But if you're doing broadcast-based text marketing, that is usually the reason you're doing it is to drive revenue for your business, you need to hire an expert. You will get your return on investment and then some in such a dramatic way. And if you hire the reason people fail is they use a system that's provided for them, not designed for them, but provided for them from a point of sale system. And so they're like, oh, okay, yeah, cool. We can go send this message out. Okay, they'll send a few messages out. They don't get any results. Before you know it, they stopped using it. It's all about the offer. It's always about segmentation. It's about reaching your ideal customers. It's about giving them value and a reason to come back or to become a customer in the first place. So the other point I want to make is use other channels to build your text list. Social media is a great example. Have an opt-in on your homepage for people to opt in to receive weekly, monthly, daily specials, whatever's appropriate in a rhythm for your business. On your social media posts, periodically, maybe even pinning a post to the top of your Facebook page, but then periodically posting, hey, remember, if you sign up for our text program, you get this. Here's the link to join. Email marketing. I mean, you can get people to, who want to get both email and text. Maybe you're sending an email once a week, but Jeff, as you mentioned, if people want a daily special, maybe they're willing to sign up for a daily text message, but they may or may not want a daily email. So ask them, get their permission. Absolutely. Ask them what their preferences are and use the channels, including your physical location, including your vehicles, including your receipts, anything that you can think of to get people, tabletops, if you're a restaurant, your menus, anything you can to get people to see your text message and make it clear the value that they get, instead of them thinking, I'm not going to sign up for that because it's just going to be a hassle. But if you get something that is desirable, that people want to take advantage of to join your list, like I said earlier, when they come in and they redeem that, and that's the other thing, use a system where you can track redemption. And now you know how to measure the effectiveness of your campaigns. I mean, I could go on and on. I mean, this drives me nuts. This is probably the one marketing solution that just freaking drives me nuts, because people are not taking advantage of absolute gold 99% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
I have no answer.
How do you really feel?
One thing I think is really important for businesses to understand too, it's just like you have to think of efficiencies when you're considering, like, hey, we have a receptionist, or we have an outside sales team that picks up the phone and makes calls. You have to think of like common questions and common answers and script them out to save people time. And what I mean by that is, if half the texts you get, or it doesn't even have to be half, but if a bunch of them are, what's your address? Have a text document open on people, like the responders page or screen, where they copy and paste it. What are your hours? What, do you guys do this? Yes. And here's a pre-canned message. Like, yes, you need to respond personally, but man, like a lot of the texts you're going to be getting, just like you would in email, just like you would on the phone, they're going to be very common, right? Frequently asked questions. You can efficiency-ize these things. That's a new word for today. So
so even more so, we talked earlier about how you're going to respond to incoming text. So that's what you're getting into. And AI is a possibility, right?
Absolutely.
For a lot of the common things, you can absolutely bolt an AI engine into the, I say bolt in, I mean, it's probably a setting in the text platform to connect to AI, and then you just train AI on the common answers, and boom, you don't have to get, somebody interrupted to answer that same thing over and over again.
Yeah. One last quick thing that I want to just mention is text marketing done right gives you the ability to get people to claim an offer, but claiming an offer doesn't give you revenue. You need to make sure they're redeeming the offer. So you can use follow-up text messages to say, hey, thanks for claiming our offer. If you haven't had a chance to redeem it yet, remember it expires within 24, 72 hours, whatever the time frame. And also, right before it expires, send a text message to somebody in the company that'll pick up the damn phone and call somebody and say, hey, you realize you claimed this offer. We'd love to have you come in. Can I help you book an appointment, or can I help you do, to place an order? And you can use text to remind the person to do that follow-up phone call internally. It's not an external text. So My gosh, this is just gold, people. Please take advantage of it. Take it seriously.
So, Jeff, what are some things people can do to implement a successful text messaging program? I know we talked on a little bit, but can you maybe summarize it a little bit?
Yeah, I think, first, if it's foreign to you, get some advice. Talk to somebody that works in this and can help you out. Drop any of us an email, or figure out one of the channels to get a hold of us and ask a question. But then what it comes down to is using a good, reliable platform that's tied into the CRM, and then implement the best practices of letting people opt in, letting them know the expectations of what's going to happen, give them some choices about how they want to be communicated with and interacted. Think of all the things that you can do to be timely and relevant, and you're going to be compliant, because you won't even be able to register the number to use unless you go through that. But making sure that you are honoring, if somebody says stop, that you really do stop. It's not rocket science in the sense that it's a major thing. It's easily done, but it's the kind of thing that if you don't do it day in, day out, you're going to spend a lot of time. You're going to maybe make some false starts. So again, get some advice, get some help, look for some resources on it.
Anybody else have any thoughts on that?
Get doing it.
Yep. Just do it. Sorry, copyright violation.
Oh,
That'll be all right. All right, then. This is a good place to wrap up, I think. We're right at about an hour. So, Ian, you want to take us out?
Sure. So, yeah, guys, you heard a lot today. Explore how you can leverage the power of text message marketing into your business. Don't wait. And be sure to smash that like button, that follow button, that subscribe button on our channels, and tell other business owners, boom, about this podcast. And until next week, keep calm and market on, folks.